Were you the only police officer on scene
At that point, yes.
at that point? So what did you do?
I saw him standing there. I got out of my car. I got my rifle out of the rack next to me and got out of my car and got my, basically started giving commands, telling him to get on the ground, get his hand, get up, put down the knife, and get on the ground.
And did you say that in a tone of voice like you're saying right here in court?
No, it was pretty loud, probably. Yeah, I was yelling.
Any response to your commands?
We had basically turned into sort of an arguing match back and forth. Me telling him to get on the ground, drop the knife, him yelling back that he wasn't going to, and it kind of went back and forth for a little bit. I realized my yelling wasn't doing anything, so I tried to lower my voice and just kind of have a conversation of, hey, this is it. You're caught. You need to just give up.
Did that make any difference?
No.
As the other officers arrived on scene, did Jeremy Christian change his tone or his level of compliance?
He started walking away from us at one point.
What did you think was happening?
I wasn't really sure where he was going. He just started walking away from us, kind of like, it almost seemed like he got frustrated and just started walking away.
Could you tell whether he was armed or not?
Yes, he still had the knife with him.
Did he display the knife to you?
Yes.
And in what fashion?
He was holding it around, waving it around. Basically, my plan was to keep an eye on him, keep walking with him at a distance, and so that until we could get more officers there to get a better containment and hopefully get him to surrender. What he had told me was that he had been shot in the face by the police in the past and that I couldn't hurt him. He said I had better shoot him because he was not going to drop the knife or get on the ground.
Did he say anything else to you that you recall?
The only other thing that I remember him saying was that he said that those people were going to be talking out of the side of their neck.
Those people be talking out of the side of their neck.
Yes.
What did you believe he was talking about?
I believed he was talking about the people he had stabbed.
What did you observe the suspect doing when you arrived?
He had a knife in his hand. He was yelling, and Officer Kula was giving commands to put it down. He refused to do it.
And what happens during the contact?
During the contact, he noticed that I had the taser out, so I'm trying not to get it to a point where lethal force is used. Sometimes pulling out the taser and having him see it actually just elevates the situation. It doesn't de-escalate the situation. But he noticed I had the taser. Kept asking if I was going to tase him.
What did he say?
Specifically, I have to look at the report. You're going to tase me? I see you holding your taser.
Jeremy Christian said that to you?
Yes.
And how do you know he was saying that, the N-word, to you?
I was the only African-American officer there.
Any other officers have a taser?
No. Another patrol car actually cut him off. He ended up stopping there. I actually tried to tase him at that point. One of the probes did make contact with him, the other probe did not. So with that happening, the actual function of the taser actually requires both probes to be into a person in order for it to conduct the electricity from one probe to another to immobilize them.
So with just that one probe, did you observe any effect on Jeremy Christian?
No.
So what happened next?
I tried to switch over to the secondary. That did not happen. So
Why not?
the way it goes is you lightly tap. It switches over from cartridge 1 to cartridge 2. Based on my adrenaline, I hit it too hard. It switched back to cartridge 1.
During this time, are officers still making verbal commands towards Jeremy Christian?
Yes.
And is he complying with those commands?
No, he ended up throwing a knife.
And did you see where the knife went?
It went towards a patrol vehicle. That was the vehicle that stopped him on the driveway that was where he was headed.
Okay. So he threw the knife, and what happened after that?
He started to proceed to go towards the hospital, which is, it's like a parking garage, another section of the hospital, but that road leads up to more people and basically the front of the hospital.
So what happened then?
Other officers arrived and basically took him into custody.
So Officer Kula had actually asked, as I was getting there, for somebody to cut off access ahead of them. So when I pulled up behind Officer Kula, the suspect was out ahead of us, and I told him, hey, I'm going to get past you and block this off. I didn't want to go between the officer and the suspect while they had guns drawn. I waited for him and Officer Johnson to acknowledge, like, okay, go. And then I drove past them.
What happened at that point?
As I get out of the car, I hear the sound of a taser cycling. It's kind of a sparking noise. Mr. Christian was still yelling and standing, so it didn't look like it had been effective. And Officer Kula yelled to me something about how he'd thrown the knife. Right about that same time, I could see taser wires, but Mr. Christian was sort of standing unaffected. He said something like, come do it, and turned around and put his hands behind his back.
When you say who?
Mr. Christian, sorry.
All right. So Mr. Christian said what?
Something along the lines of come do it, and he sort of turned around, faced away from the officers, all of us, and put his hands behind his back.
At that point, what did you think was happening?
It looked like he was surrendering.
Okay, what did you do?
The group of us moved forward. Officer Kula had his hands full. He was still holding his rifle. Officer Johnson had his taser in his hand. So me and Officer Cook grabbed onto Mr. Christian's arms. As soon as we grabbed onto him, he started to try to pull away. So we just pushed him forward from the sidewalk we were on into like a bark dust bed between the sidewalk and the roadway that my car had been on. We all sort of tumbled forward together, his face down, each of us on top of him, one on each arm, and then we held his arms together while Officer Johnson handcuffed him.
And where initially did you take Jeremy Christian?
We stood him up, and then we placed him in the back of my police car because it was right there.
What was the first statement that you noted he made?
When I sat down in the car, without me saying a word to him, he said, I want to go on the record. I hope those motherfuckers are dead. Fuck them. I can rest in peace as long as they're all dead. When I sat back down, he yelled, you're a Jew. You're the worst piece of humanity. Then he said, I stabbed them in the neck. I hope they die. And then he asked, self-defense is illegal in Oregon?
Did you respond to any of those comments?
No.